When I was a young mom, I decided to wear dresses all the time and let my hair grow long. A lot of ladies who attended the Institute in Basic Life Principles did this too. And since I once attended their conferences, was I in a cult? And was I in danger of guiding my children into one? And was the Duggar family in a cult? And if you attend the IBLP conference, are you in danger too of being in a cult? I'm going to give you my thoughts about my experiences with IBLP and another family I know who took things a bit too far in my opinion. But first I want to say the fact that I decided to wear dresses and grow my hair had nothing to do with IBLP. I just wanted to be more feminine, and I wanted my girls to be more feminine, and I hadn't even heard of IBLP when I started to do this. I'll explain why I stopped constantly wearing dresses later in this video. There's been a lot of hoopla about a so-called documentary, a kind of expose that recently was released on Prime Video entitled Shiny Happy People, in which the producers were interviewing Ginger Duggar and others who were talking about their thoughts in relation to the Institute in Basic Life Principles, Bill Gothard, and how their interaction with his organization affected their lives. I want to also say that I read Ginger Duggar's book, Becoming Free Indeed, and found it to be very honest and sincere. But I also believe that Ginger was unfortunately being used by the producers of Shiny Happy People in a way she may not have intended. I'll explain that in a minute. Now, I attended a few IBLP conferences back when my children were very young. Now, if you haven't ever heard of the organization and its founder, I'll give you a quick overview here. The Institute in Basic Life Principles is a Christian organization founded in 1961 by Bill Gothard. If you read the basic beliefs of the organization, which you can do by going on their website, they're very well founded in the Christian faith, and most Christians would agree with their principles. In fact, the character building lessons are mostly really good, and they dig deep into the traits we all want to have in our lives and to teach our children. So generally, the IBLP teaches good things that can be used in our lives to enhance our faith and bring us closer to the kind of people God wants us to be and that we want to be. The problem with the whole thing isn't the basic principles necessarily. The problem comes in when people take these principles and misapply them or take them to an extreme. That's when they become a problem, and when they can skew a person's perception of God and what it means to have a truly healthy relationship with Him. Some of this skewed perception is explained in Ginger's book, although I also think some of her perception of IBLP is also skewed because of the application of some of the principles that happened in her life and in the life of her family and what she called an overactive conscience. If you read her book or see an interview with her about it, she makes very clear that she had a wonderful childhood, that her family is very important to her, that she believes her parents love her and all the siblings dearly, and that they did a very good job of raising them. But any good thing can be taken to an extreme and become a bad thing. For example, if you drink too much water, you can actually die from water toxicity. Does that mean drinking a lot of water is a bad thing? No. In fact, drinking a good amount of water is a very healthy thing. So one problem with the way some have applied the things taught at IBLP conferences is that they took things to an extreme. Another problem that's happened with the IBLP is that some people who have attended the conferences and embraced the whole organization also began to see Bill Gothard as a deity type figure, that he was speaking for God himself and they saw him as a prophet. When people begin to see leaders in this way, the organization often begins to act like more of a cult than of a Christian organization promoting good character. Now, if you watch Shiny Happy People, you'll see that the whole so-called documentary has ominous music in the background. It highlights people who believe they were harmed by their interaction with Christianity and IBLP, and focuses on some of the accusations of misconduct by Bill Gothard, which may or may not be true. Some of his actions may have been misinterpreted and some may not. Though the accusers tried to sue Gothard in court, all charges were eventually dropped and dismissed by the accusers, and Gothard unsuccessfully tried to countersue to prove his innocence. So I'm not here to defend or to support Mr. Gothard. I'm also not here to defend or support the youth homes that IBLP had to try to help troubled youth. My point is that the documentary was not an honest look at the organization at all, or of the Duggar family for that matter. It was actually just a hit piece. And I believe from reading Ginger's book that the portrayal this film gave by editing her comments may not have been what she intended it to look like, because it made her look like she was generally unhappy with her upbringing and with Christianity. And that's not what she said in her book. Also, all the people interviewed for the expose were people who had personal problems and seemed to blame all of their woes on the fact that their families participated in IBLP, which is very unrealistic in my opinion. There are millions of people with the same types of problems as they described that never heard of Bill Gothard or IBLP. So to equate all their problems to this isn't reasonable. The film treats all who dislike IBLP as the ones who see the truth, and all those who are involved in it as cultists. So I want to talk a little bit about my experiences with IBLP. I had a very close friend whose family was involved in IBLP as far as being followers of the teachings and attending conferences. They invited my husband and I to attend. We found it fascinating and the concepts and teachings to be very spot on as far as Christianity goes. The only thing that we questioned from what we had seen was the umbrella of authority concept and the idea that there was a problem with music dissonance. The authority concept seemed good, other than it looked like something that could be taken to an extreme if applied, especially when the husband or father was not acting in a godly manner. So the idea that the man would be a provider and protector was good, of course, but submission to his authority had to be limited to his behavior, which didn't seem to be adequately addressed in the materials. In their core beliefs, IBLP states, quote, "We believe that men and women are spiritually equal in position and value before God, as both are created in the image of God with distinctive God-designed roles in the family and the church," unquote. So the idea that men and women have different roles according to Scripture and that both are of equal worth? True. Again, this authority concept can be good, but it can also be taken to an extreme, especially when it comes to cult-type situations, at which point it can then become a very bad thing. The music dissonance thing, I just completely do not agree with that at all, so there's that. Well, one day I was in the van with my IBLP friend and her family. She had long hair just like I did, and she was having trouble keeping it out of her face. So I offered her to use a large Brett that I had with me so she could hold her hair back with it. And she thanked me and put it in her hair. The Brett did the trick. But a few minutes later, she returned the Brett to me, and she said she felt it was too fancy and didn't think it was right to wear it. The point was that it was going to be too vain and it would bring too much attention to her. This got me thinking, are beautiful pieces meant to bring beauty into the world around us and enhance our own beauty bad things? No. I thought, no, they aren't. They're not bad, and we shouldn't be thinking that way. We should be glad to see beautiful things and enjoy them. I began to watch more closely how she thought about things, and how she began to be more and more worried and full of fear of offending God. In fact, one time she asked which of the fruits of the Spirit she needed most to work on. In my opinion, what did I think? I said joy. Joy seemed to be lacking because it was overtaken by fear. Now, Ginger Duggar described a similar feeling in herself, how she was always assessing every little thing and worrying about how God might be unhappy with it and feeling unnecessary guilt a lot of the time. I felt that was really sad. I had more experiences with this same friend when she began to scrutinize every little thing in her life and the lives of her children and even her husband. She wouldn't allow her children to go to school. And I'm talking about a Christian school that she knew almost everyone there. She knew all the teachers and all the people mostly. I would never suggest public school at this point, so please don't misinterpret my words here. She wouldn't even allow her children to attend Sunday school unless she was in the class with them, because they could be taught something wrong. They could not attend youth camps or retreats, birthday parties. They even began limiting holiday events and gatherings. It was like anything that would bring joy or fun was scrutinized so much that it was seen as corrupting. There was no jewelry, no makeup. Her clothes became more and more plain and frankly unattractive. Her children could not even attend graduation parties or ceremonies because she believed in homeschooling and didn't want her children to see anything that might make them think other kinds of schooling would be acceptable. They could not attend weddings unless the bride and groom both practiced courtship as she thought it should be. I began to see this and realized that she was making laws unto herself and applying them as if they were directly from God. Then I looked at myself. Was I doing that too? Did I make a law that I should wear dresses all the time? Yes, I did. I had decided that this was a law, and even if I was uncomfortable at times or my legs were cold because they were exposed to winter, I still felt I had to wear a dress. But why? I realized I had started to make laws that God didn't make for me. I had made laws unto myself, just like she was doing. God does give us laws that are there to make our burden lighter because they come to bear fruit in our lives and draw us closer to Him and His will in our lives, which also brings us joy. I began to see that these laws I made had become a burden, not a joy, and that an overactive conscience can cause a person to make all kinds of unnecessary restrictions on themselves. So I decided that this was not right and I needed to make a change. I wore a pair of pants for the first time in several years. Our family went over to this friend's house one evening and there was a misunderstanding of where the children were allowed to go on their property. Instead of just recognizing it was a misunderstanding, there had to be a big conference between them and us to talk about obedience and how the children must obey at all times. Even though it was clear it wasn't about obedience, but it was about not understanding the rules. Then the next time we got together, there was a misunderstanding about one of the children climbing a tree. And the same thing happened. It wasn't just addressed quickly, but a big meeting had to be done and a big deal had to be made. It came to the point that when we had her family over, she made her children come and check in with her literally every 15 minutes to make sure nothing was going on that shouldn't be between her children and mine. And I'm not exaggerating by saying, oh yeah, every 15 minutes. No, I'm serious. Like every 15 minutes, they had to check back in with her. She would even actually go into the playroom with the children and stay there instead of sitting with the adults having conversation because she was afraid my children would corrupt hers unless her children came to her every 15 minutes to check in. That was pretty much the last straw. We loved their family, but being with them had become a burden rather than a joy. It had been previously a joy. We couldn't have a pleasant get-together anymore because she was constantly in fear of what her children might encounter unless she was with them at every moment. This was the thing I realized about some people who get deeply into the IBLP concepts. The concepts themselves are good ones, but the application can cause problems when each thing is taken to an extreme. Something I have to add here. She and most of the people involved in the IBLP are very sincere and wanting to do the right thing and to raise their children in a godly Christian way. They truly want to do the best for them. They love their children with all their hearts, and they work very hard to be the best parents they can be. These are really good people. So by sharing my experiences, I'm not in any way saying these are bad people and that they are purposefully damaging their children. But I do believe the extremes can cause damage when they don't realize it. And also I want to stress right here that no matter how well you raise a child, they have the ultimate say in what they believe and how they will behave when they grow up, and what things they will allow into their lives. So the fact that one of the Duggar children became well known for his secret deviant sexual behavior does not mean all that the Duggars did was wrong or ill-advised, and that can't be blamed on IBLP either. They had 19 children, and so far, the outcome of their upbringing has been well above average. Generally, they have raised many good children who are responsible citizens and try to do their best in the world. One of their children allowed himself to go astray, and whether you agree with how the Duggars handled it or not, I believe they sincerely tried to do their best in dealing with it, although that obviously didn't work out well. And how many people have begun a life full of sexual deviant behavior and were not raised in a large Christian IBLP family? Lots. So those who point to IBLP or the Duggars or Christianity as the culprit, as this so-called documentary did, need only to look at those who have the same problems and were not involved with any of that. I would suggest that before you make a judgment about IBLP or the Duggars family, you don't just listen to hit pieces like Shiny Happy People or interviews with hosts who already have a biased attitude, and you don't just listen to someone who has a one-sided opinion about it all. Instead, read up on it from both sides and learn more. One of the problems with the way things are portrayed in the media is that things are usually skewed, sensationalized, and biased one way or the other. In the end, I believe IBLP has some good concepts when applied in moderation, that the Duggar parents did their best and worked hard to raise a good Christian family and be a good witness, and that those who see it as all bad or all good are not looking at the whole picture. So is the whole IBLP organization a cult or not? Actually, it can be treated as a cult, and some people involved become cult-like in their belief in it. But others can see the good things taught and apply them in ways that grow their character and their faith. It all depends on what you decide to do with what you learn from it. Remember that not everything is all bad or all good. Context matters. I hope this has been helpful to those who were wondering. If so, please remember to subscribe and click on the screen now to find step-by-step videos to help you become the most effective parent you can be. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you here next time.